Right, guys, before you watch this wee video, I have left a link for my podcast that's airing this Wednesday at 8 p.m. with Robert Sargent, the author of The Black Pool, and the book is about Gangland Dublin. So if you're into true crime podcasts, make sure you click the link in the description. It will take you over to the premiered podcast. Set your reminder for this one this Wednesday, the 5th of October at 8 p.m. And remember, smash the like button here, guys. Subscribe and ring the bell if you haven't already. Big up to all my previous subscribers and all the new subscribers. And go over to that premiered video and smash the like button because it will help me out in the algorithms. And if you're into true crime podcasts, this is a pretty good one. So remember, 8 p.m. this Wednesday, Robert Sargent, the author of The Black Pool, talks about Gangland Dublin. And his book covers from the early 90s right up until 2019. Fantastic podcast, wealth of knowledge, and I'm sure you'll enjoy it. So just click the link in the description and it will take you straight to there. Enjoy the video, guys, and peace. Right, Steve. Jeffrey Dahmer. I don't know if you know who he is. Do you know who he is?
I've got not a clue, Ronan.
Right. So Jeffrey Dahmer was a serial killer back in the day. I think he was born in, let me just see. Let me actually just correct this. Let me just see. When was Jeffrey Dahmer born? 1960, right? And this guy, I don't know the correct time period, right? But I watched the whole series, but I knew about him ages ago. And just to let you know, I posted a Jeffrey Dahmer meme on Facebook in 2019, and I got banned for 30 days a couple of days ago because the Jeffrey Dahmer situation was so hot that it flagged it on Facebook, and they gave me a 30-day ban for a Jeffrey Dahmer meme. It was a really silly meme. It wasn't even bad. But anyway, everybody's talking about Jeffrey Dahmer, right? And this guy lived in an area of America, Milwaukee, I believe. So Jeffrey Dahmer, born Jeffrey Leonard Dahmer, 1960, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, died November 28th, 1994, age 34, right? He got murdered in prison for the things that he done. Now, this guy killed tens of young black men. So Jeffrey Dahmer in the series, right, he was killing roadkill with his father, and they would scoop up roadkill and they would take it back to the shed and they would dissect the roadkill from a very young age, and his dad would show him all the different things to do with inside of the body of dead animals. Now, where the series got this wrong, the dad didn't actually do that with him, but Jeffrey Dahmer would do that himself as a young kid. He was a serial killer, and he came from a broken home. His mother believed in, like, she was talking about aliens. She had a lot of mental health issues. Now, what he would do is some of the most evil crimes that you would ever witness. He would go out to a nightclub, to a gay nightclub, pick up young fellas, take them back to his place, and then murder them. He would butcher them, freeze their body, eat some of their body, and keep their skeletons in his apartment.
Wow. Is that right? Was that just black people, or was that?
Yeah, it was just, he just solely done it to black people. Now, this is where it gets really, really interesting, right? There was a part of the series, and they got something else wrong. The lady that lived beside him, that was also in the story, that sort of flagged it to the police countless times, and the police done nothing. She actually didn't live beside him. She lived down the street, I think. So they messed with that in the movie. They made her closer to him. They put her next door to him in this sort of apartment block. Now, there was a part in the movie that was really interesting where there was a black cop and there was a white cop, And the black cop said, and I'm paraphrasing, you lived in this black neighborhood and you targeted these black people, knowing that the police don't even investigate in these areas, and you seen these as vulnerable people and you chose your victims wisely. And I actually believe that's what he done, because back in those days, we all know the sort of the racism in America, the sort of persecution against African Americans and all different types of races. And this guy went into these black neighborhoods and predominantly gay bars. And I'm not joking you, Steve, right? Whenever I say this, he had a shrine to the devil. He done like black magic, or I don't know if he was into black magic, but it looked like he pledged his allegiance to the devil. And wow. he would so what he actually tried to do was he tried to make zombies. So he would get a drill and he would drill into their head to take out a part of their brain. So then they would turn into like a zombie. And then he would have sex zombies. And he would have control of these people for the rest of their life. Now, obviously, when you drill into somebody's brain, they're going to fucking die. And his whole house was littered in skeletons. His whole apartment was littered in skeletons. It was that bad. The smell from the place was that bad that the whole place reeked of death and rotten flesh. Now, this is the crazy part, right? All of it's crazy, but the police were flagged on multiple occasions. He drilled into a young fella's head and he went out to the shop to get beer and left the young fella in the apartment. When he was out, the young fella woke up on this drug, this fucking Rohypnol that he used to drug his victims with in the bars. And this young fella was sitting out the front of the step with two black women. The police show up. This is a minor. The black woman's screaming at the cop, "This is a child. This is a child," right? So she's saying to the cop, "This is a child." They look at Dahmer. He's white. And they say to Dahmer, "Who is this?" He says, "This is my boyfriend. He's not a child. He's of consensual age." They take his word over the woman screaming that that's a child. And they allow Dahmer to take him back upstairs into the room to where he would butcher and eat and grape and do all those other things. And the police allowed that.
Wow.
Now, here's the crazy thing, right? See, after the movie had ended and all this came out, the police they went on paid leave because obviously these two cops allowed all this to happen. And they never listened to any of the black people in the neighborhood. They fought that, got their jobs back, and they actually won awards. So it showed how racist the police system was back then. And Dahmer picked his victims, man. Like, I'm not joking you. This guy, it showed you the first time he killed somebody. And he was like a real creep. He tried to nab somebody running. And he got some guy into the house that was looking for a lift. And he basically tried to come on to this guy because Dahmer was a gay man. And this guy was like, "Get the fuck away from me." And he pushed him, and Dahmer hit him over the head and killed him. And then just chopped up his body. And it just went on a serial killing spree. I think he killed let me see how many victims. This you have to understand, right? So how many, I'll type this in here. How many victims, how many victims did Jeffrey Dahmer have? Let me just see. Jeffrey Dahmer. That's him there, Steve. Look. That's him there.
Fucking hell.
Right?
He's only young. Young, isn't he?
He was the devil, mate. He was the devil. The definition.
His eyes in that photo looked a bit piercing.
and he was also a sex offender too. So
so he won't only just like killing them and eating them. He was actually raping them as well.
Oh, that's what the whole purpose was. He was doing that with them too, and then he would kill them and then do it to them again.
What, while they're dead?
I don't know. I would say so, mate. I can't really remember. I think so. But before he started serial killing, he was a sex offender. He would grape young men. He was in the army.
So he basically progressed from graping men to actually then going on to murder them.
He went from cutting up animals from a young kid and understanding the organs of animals, right, to drugging men and graping them in the army, to then becoming a serial killer. So he progressed
through.
And I'm trying to find out the amount of victims that he had. So, victims 17 young men.
Wow. And they're just predominantly black that he was going after.
All of them non-white, I believe. And
so it could be a racial element to that factor as well.
No, he wasn't racist. No? He wasn't. I don't think he cared about race. He wasn't like a Nazi or anything. He done it because in this area the police wouldn't investigate this because they were black. Isn't that fucked up?
So basically, he's seen that the chances of him getting found out or caught were going to be slim to start with, because obviously the police force wouldn't intervene into a black person being like murdered.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and it all came out, and the cops got like paid leave while this was being investigated. The cops actually said to the head cop, "You can't do anything about this because I'll get our union involved." And the union did get involved, and there was like black rights groups that came in to try to sort of get these cops fired, but they won. The white cops won, and basically got away with it, and it was negligence from the police. But I can't describe to you what this guy done. Like this, Steve, see if you get a chance, mate, please go and watch that. That is...
What was his name again? I'll just quickly get him up on the...
Jeffrey Dahmer. He was the devil. But here's the fucked up thing, Steve, right? See, around the same period, you had... You put interference there, is there? You had...
Dahmer. There he is.
Right, so you had, round about the same time period, you had Ted Bundy, Jeffrey Dahmer, and John Wayne Gacy, and multiple other serial killers in that era of America, right? I do believe that these people were like some MK Ultra experiment. You can't have that level of serial killing going on in America at the same time period, and just for it to be a coincidence.
Jeffrey Lionel Dahmer, May 21st, 1960 to 94, also known as Malarkey Cannibal and a Malawi Monster, was an American serial killer and a sex offender who committed the murder and dismemberment of 17 men and boys between 1978 and 1991.
He cut their penises off.
Many of his later murders involve necrophilia, cannibalism, and the permanent preservation of body parts, typically all of the parts of the skeleton. Necrophilia, what's that?
Dead bodies. Like doing
so
shit.
He's basically had sex with dead bodies then, by the sound of that.
Yeah. Isn't that fucked up?
That's fucked up, that is.
So it wasn't just like, do you know the way you might get that, right? You might get somebody's into that, some creepy bastard that's into that shit, but he's not into like killing people or anything, right? He was a grapist. He drugged people, young men. When he was in the army, he raped soldiers in the army because he became a medical student in the army, right? And when he like a medic in the army, and he was given access to drugs that could knock people out, and he used that to grape people soldiers in the army.
Wow. 941 years he got in jail. Wow. 941 years.
Yeah, mate, it wasn't long enough.
Wow.
There should be an
Hell.
infinity. This should just be life. You're never getting out. There's no chance of parole. There's nothing. It doesn't matter how good you are. It doesn't matter if you solve world hunger when you're in prison. There is no way you're getting out of prison because you will always be a danger to society. But I felt so bad for his dad. His dad was like, "Was this me? Did I do this to you?" Like they really tried to make his dad out to be bad in the movie, but that was a part of the movie. He didn't. His dad didn't show him how to cut up animals as a kid. His
But it
dad,
says here also, although he was diagnosed with borderline personality disorder, schizotypal personality disorder, and a psychotic disorder. Wow.
no, mate. Listen, that's all. They're all little labels, like. But this guy was evil. This was the devil.
This is the I mean, I've never heard of anything worse than what I've just heard there from you there.
There was way worse.
That is the devil of all devils, mate. Serious.
Here, see that Ted Bundy, mate? He was way worse. He's displaying these people displayed behaviors like certain individuals we see on YouTube, mentioning no names, right?
Especially on the, what we just mentioned, that how Jeffrey progressed.
Yes.
On all the way, and that is the same pattern of events of a certain individual too, except at the moment, he hasn't reached as far as to murder anyone, but you can relate them two paths, I think.
Well, look, you have to understand, right? Like you think that's bad, right? And that's terrible. But you have Ted Bundy, who done that to multiple women, had graves for these women, and would go back to the grave where they were to do shit to them while they're in their grave for months. These guys, something went on in America between like 1940 and the 90s. Something went on in regards to some mad MK Ultra experiment, because these guys, there's no way you can do that if you're even if you're an evil person, you have your limitations. This cunt was out here for years. Like, I can't even get my head around it. How could you do that?
What would go through see? I don't think anyone's actually done that. Are their brains able to be tested once they've died to see what made them function? What made them tick? I don't know if that's possible.
Good question. But at the end of the series, they actually touched on that, because the mum, who was a cunt, she left Jeffrey at a young age. No, was he young? Was he young? She left him anyway. Like randomly, she was a loony bin. She left, and his dad was out with a new woman, and he was left in the house for like months by himself, and his dad didn't know this. And at the end of the movie, the mum says, "I want his brain to go to science." But because Jeffrey in prison became a born again Christian and actually started to become a better person in prison and understand his crimes, and he got baptized in prison, he then believed that all of his body needed to be cremated. And the dad said, no, his brain needs to go. His brain needs to be cremated with his body. And he won that in court, and his brain was cremated.
See, maybe that's the way forward, so scientists can understand, what makes these people function in the brain. I'm not sure if they'll be able to get results back to tell them, how their brain functioned. I mean, but with the science technology out there now, I mean, it'd be interesting to find out if this can be possible.
Well, John Wayne Gacy, he was a serial killer around about the same time. I don't know if you know about him. John Wayne Gacy, the serial killer clown. So he was a
I've
clown.
heard of that. I mean, I haven't done much research into that, but I have definitely heard about that.
Yeah, I've got a guy from America who knows all about this stuff. I actually should get back in contact with him again to get him on the podcast. But he speaks to actual serial killers in America today. He sends them letters and stuff, and he talks to them on the phone. And he was just like, "There's loads of them," and there's the Night Stalker in L.A. who was linked to that hotel that like where killers would hang out, and it was like a satanic hotel. But that series opened my eyes to what actually America was like at that time. And if I had to put my finger on it, I would say there was some MK Ultra shit that was going on in America at the time to make these people. Definitely 100%.
I mean, it's definitely got to be again going back to chemical imbalances in the brain. It's got to be linked to something like that, surely, because we're not going to wake up overnight, and then go out and commit a rape or a murder or. I mean, it'd be interesting to find out in future, like if this is possible, because then they can work out what remedies there are, to counter-react the chemical imbalances in their brain, to help them.
I think that was satanic, mate, because he had rituals to Satan and everything in his house. There was a satanic element to that too. Before Dahmer would kill any of his victims, he would make them sit and watch The Exorcist. Like there was scenes where one fella got away and he flagged. That's how he got caught. One fella actually got away because he was made to sit and watch The Exorcist, and he hit Dahmer with something, and Dahmer was going to butcher him. Like this was peak. He was in his peak here, like, and he got away, and the cops came to the house, and ironically, it was the same cops that ignored all the rest of the shit, and that's where they got him. One guy got away, thank fuck, but they found satanic stuff in his house. Like he had a freezer full of human meat.
Wow, that's just creepy.
Like there was skeletons found in his like literal skeletons found in his
his cupboard.
No, literally. I think that's where the term came from. Skeletons in your closet probably came from Dahmer.
Probably so. I think by the sounds of it. I mean, but there's so many these sort of characters from history. I would have thought that they would have maybe started investigating on what made their brains function. I mean, I hope in the future there be a program, that can make us understand how they functioned.
Well, here's one for you, right? So there's a guy in Germany, I think it was Germany, and he used to look after kids in the area, and he's in jail now for being a cannibal. He killed somebody, right, and he ate them. And he said that he didn't want to go out and murder somebody that didn't want this to happen to them, but he had an urge to eat human flesh. And he went on the dark web, and he came across a forum, and there was a guy in it, willing, who was into like pain shit, like into like pain BDSM, that was willing to die, the ultimate sacrifice. And he came to his house, and he killed him, and he ate him, and he ate his body in special occasions. And that guy looked after kids in the area. And the people of the area said, I probably would still trust him with my kids.
Wow.
Because he even said it himself, I didn't want to go out and harm a man or a woman that didn't want to be harmed. They had to come to me and say, I'm willing to be ate. And somebody actually came to him and says, I'm willing to be ate. So he ate them. But he also looked after the kids in the area, and he never touched them.
That's crazy. I mean, to think on one hand, he's capable of doing this, but that yet on the other hand, he's portraying to be like a carer, like he cares. I mean, I can honestly say I could trust my kid in the presence of somebody like that. How do they control their mind?
He didn't have any background. He didn't have a
Yeah.
background of killing people. He just, that one person, he said, I had the urge to eat human flesh. I didn't want to kill an innocent person or somebody that didn't want it. So I went on the dark web and sourced somebody that was willing to be ate. They came to my house. I killed them in a bath when consensually, as he said. And it was all written down in letters that the guy even wrote a letter to, and it was confirmed to be his handwriting, that he said this was all consensual. He chopped your guy up and he ate him like on Christmases and Easter and all the Christian holidays, and all the while looking after everybody's kids, and all the kids loved them, and he never harmed any kid or anybody that didn't want to be harmed.
That's weird. I mean, to sit here, I'd have to say I can't believe it, but obviously I do believe it, because how can you control that? You know, you go out your way to murder and eat somebody, but yet on the other hand, you're as caring as bloody the next parent. I mean, that's just.
But there's something to
Man,
be said about that, though. He, like, obviously it's fucked up, man. It's fucked. That is fucked up. But it's like, what's worse, Dahmer that went out and done it to the people that didn't want that to happen to them. Like, it was so sad. The story of Dahmer was so sad, where that young gay man, and he was an up and coming model. He was a wee deaf guy. He was a deaf guy, and he was like a handsome guy, and Dahmer killed him and ate him. Or no, I don't think he ate him, but he killed him and he butchered him. And it's like, these people had so much going for them. Do you know what I mean? And that's the definition of pure evil. Where this guy from Germany, where it's fucked up what he done, at least he had the morality and the sort of the goodness in him to go, well, I'm not going to eat people that don't want to be ate. But who the fuck wants?
So the one from Germany basically offered the service in one way, shape, or form.
The guy from Germany, I forget his name. He sourced somebody that was into pain, and the guy said, I want to die because it's the ultimate fucking orgasm or something, right? Which is weird as fuck. I don't even know how, like, that's just strange to me, right?
See, me or you, we would sit there and convince the person otherwise, wouldn't we? You know,
Well,
we'd convince them, you know, to get help and, you know, don't think like this. But it seems like this guy was willing, you know, to go out of his way to accommodate that person's request.
He sourced this guy on the dark web. Do you know what I mean? That's what I'm trying to say. The dark web. These motherfuckers are coming from the dark web and infiltrating surface web apps. That's what I mean. Do you know what I mean? You can find this shit on Telegram now. Do you know what I mean? But he ate him, and it was his only victim, and the guy wanted that to happen. So, okay, he deserves prison time for it, but he deserves to spend the rest of his life in prison. He's a very fucked up individual, but I don't think it's as bad as Dahmer, though, is it?
Probably not. I mean, other people, I can only say my opinion. You know, whereas Dahmer was doing something that these people didn't want to happen. You know, they didn't want to be murdered. They didn't want to be raped. They didn't want to be cut up. Whereas the one from Germany is obviously catering for the market of people that, you know, wanted to be killed in it.
Yeah.
So Dahmer's definitely worse, yeah, for sure.
100%, mate. 100%.
And I don't agree with any of that. I mean, I don't.
Of course, mate. Of course.
Other than what you've just mentioned now about the dark web, I mean, that's the first that I've heard of the dark web. To be honest with you, you know, I might be naive, but
have you never heard of the dark web, mate?
There was somebody that mentioned it about a month or so ago to me. He said, "Oh, we can get anything on the dark web," and you know, it didn't interest me to have a look to see what this dark web was. I mean, but up until now, with what you're saying, that's available on the dark web and coming off the dark web onto the internet platforms. I've never really heard of it other than that. Other than you mentioning it now, and my mate saying he could get. I think what he said. He was talking on the lines that he said, "Oh, I can get a fake SIA license." And
Mate,
I said, I said to him, but you know, how can you get hold of something like that? And he said, oh, the dark web. I was like,
So, do you want me to explain it to you? So there's the surface web, which would be Google, all your search engines and your apps and your Facebooks, right? That takes up for about 10% of the internet. And then the other 90% is the dark and then deep web. So I'm not going to tell people how to access the dark web. I've never actually accessed it myself, but I know people who use the dark web. So let's talk about why the dark web is a good thing. The dark web is used in mainly communist countries to sort of send messages untraceable. So if I'm on the dark web and I do it right, I can become untraceable. And the currency that you would use in the dark web would be cryptocurrency. So it's not like you don't put your fucking bank details in, because these bastards can trace you. You would use cryptocurrencies that can be untraced. And in the dark web, there's everything. You can have chat forums with just normal people talking. And you can also go to the deepest, darkest realms of red rooms. And a red room would be where you have a person in the room and you're sending messages on a live form, a live feed, and you pay for a message, and that message could be do certain things to this individual, like torture, and you pay for that. That's the deepest, darkest shit that goes on the dark web. And they have been proven. There was a red room found in Italy, and I think there's many more of them. Basically, like Saw shit and that movie shit that you would see, right? But you can buy stuff. So there was a drug website on the dark web called the Silk Road, and I'm actually, to be honest with you, there's a guy that lives local to me that was selling on this shit, like, and you could buy any drug imaginable on the dark web, and it would be sent straight to your house, like in a fucking Heinz beans tin. And then obviously there was human trafficking on it. You could buy weapons on it. And then it went to the sickest, darkest shit. Like, I don't even like saying the word, but children and things like that. You've got all those sick bastards on it. But what you're finding today is a lot of these people have moved away from the dark web and have went onto apps that are encrypted, like Telegram is used for a lot of this stuff now. But the reason why the dark web was invented was the US Navy used the other side of the web, which was then renamed the dark web, to send messages without the enemy sort of getting it. And once they released that to the public, they opened the Pandora's box, because then everybody could access it.
So this is basically going back to Molly's story, where
80s.
she could access like the videos that she was watching about committing suicide. That's basically where it's brushed over from the dark web.
Well, this is what I'm trying to say. There is that evilness on that dark web where, like, everything goes on the dark web. You can't just, for instance, you can't go on the dark web. Like, I've seen people that have accessed it on YouTube, and you can't just go on the dark web and, like, it has a browser. Once you're on, you have to type in certain code to get to a certain website. It's not like the surface web where you have apps and stuff. There's a lot of info. Like, there's an audiobook I listened to once in regards to this. I forget the name of it. It was years ago, and they broke it down about the dark web and the shit that went on there, man. It was like, the drugs was one thing, but
is that the sort of stuff that Ron Swanson was into?
yeah, he had like a whole dark web series where he would speak. He actually spoke to a nonce, an active nonce, had a chat message with an active nonce, that was talking about how he was a school teacher and all. I don't even want to talk about that, to be honest with you, because it makes me sick. But it's just disgusting, because one thing I'll thank Ron Swanson for is that he made me highly paranoid about everybody. Whenever I go into a school, like my son's school, and I see a male teacher or a male assistant, I fucking grill them. I let them know that I know shit. I don't come out and say it. I don't go, oh, here, I'm accusing you of something. But I would go right up to them, I'd grab their hand, I'd squeeze their hand as tight as fucking possible without being a weirdo. And I would say, I'm introducing myself, I'm such and such as dad. What made you take this job? And I don't give a fuck. I do it because I would rather me come across as a dickhead or paranoid than something happening to my son, because I'm doing time. Like if you think Jeffrey Dahmer's bad in regards, well, I wouldn't be eating anybody now, but I would go on a massacre, mate. There's multiple. If somebody done that to my son, everybody that person loves, apart from the kid.
Family means more to me than anything else on the world. More than money, more than anything. And I agree with what you just said.
Apart from kids, apart from their kids. But if anybody done shit like that to my son, apart from the kids, I would absolutely dismantle everything in his life and make him watch. That's how strongly I feel about it. I would have to be sentenced to 1,000 years in prison for what I would do.
Amen.
So, do you know what I mean? So it's
amen to that.
I make sure I go over and grab their hand and let them know there's a presence here. If you fuck about, there's going to be serious repercussions for what could happen. And they could be just innocent people just got a job. But at the end of the day, fuck it, I don't care.